Today's video is one of the videos that I have been requested in the past. It's been mentioned to me, and every time I said, nope, I will not do that video. It's too controversial. And that's the video I'm doing today. It's not an easy video to talk about, but it's also a very real fact that we face, that any parent faces with any of their child, but especially a child on the spectrum. Today's video, we are going to talk about autism and discipline. For a minute, let's leave out the fact that your child is autistic. Every child needs to be disciplined differently because every child receives it differently. We discipline Danielle different than we discipline Lonnie Jr., and they're both typical children. So when you add in autism or any kind of special needs, it's just very up and down. So please, if I offend you, I'm sorry. If these tips don't work for you, I'm sorry. This is just what I've experienced. I have 5 children. For those who are new, hit that red subscribe button. I always forget to say that. But for those who are new, I have a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 2-year-old, and an almost 3-month-old baby. My 10-year-old is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. He is moderately functioning. According to the doctors, he's low functioning, but I say he's moderate because he is verbal. I'm going to try talking about this, and I'm going to try not to be offensive or step on anyone's toes, but this is how we do things in our house. It may or may not work for you. I hope it works for you, because believe me when I say I know how difficult it is to discipline many different children, but it's also harder when you have special needs in place. The first thing I want to say is we do not use corporal punishment in our house. We did once upon a time. I know a lot of people say, oh my God, no YouTuber ever admits that they ever spanked their kids. Guys, we once spanked our children way back when. But then when we had Noah, we had to come up with a different way to discipline him. Sorry guys, the lighting was bothering me. But when you spank a child that has sensory issues, not only is it not effective, it can actually be quite traumatizing to them. But for us, we realized early on through research, through talking to actual autistic people, just kind of our own experiences, that using corporal punishment or spanking or anything like that with Noah wasn't going to be effective. So we had to learn what was going to be effective. A lot of times it's easy as an autism parent to kind of not want to discipline because it's really hard to find that medium ground. And I'm going to say that it is really hard to find something that works for your child. But the worst thing that you can do is not discipline them. As they get older, they're going to be in the real world, and the real world does have consequences for them. I do want to say I understand. Noah gets completely different consequences and discipline than our other children. It's hard sometimes to differentiate from, okay, is this part of his autism or a meltdown that he cannot control, or is this something he can control and he needs a discipline for it? But early on, we realized that corporal punishment wouldn't work with Noah, so we had to find different things that worked. And that is when we kind of discovered that you don't necessarily have to spank your children to get them to listen, to get them to behave and be respectful children. If you've noticed from my vlogs, my older kids are very, very respectful. They are great children. Are they always that way? Of course not. They are kids. They're 12 and 13, and they have a mouth on them sometimes. They don't clean always when I tell them, like tonight. But overall, they are good kids. They are good, respectful kids. So you do not have to beat your children to have nice kids, okay? Okay, so I think it's gonna be easiest if I talk about what we don't discipline for. Kids will be kids and they do something naughty like every day. What we don't discipline for, and this is again why I've reluctant to do this video, because it's hard to explain. It is so different depending on what level of functioning your child is, if your child's verbal or nonverbal. I really don't know how you would discipline a nonverbal child. I don't know. Fathering Autism is a great autism channel. He's touched on so many topics, so I'm pretty sure he's talked about this. He has a little girl. She's not little, she's Noah's age, but she is so adorable, but she's nonverbal. The first thing that we never discipline for is meltdowns. Noah has asked me not to go into deep discussion on what happens during his meltdowns. That's why I really don't talk in detail about them. But I will say that Noah kind of turns into a different person during meltdowns, and that's all I'm going to say about it. We don't discipline him for that. That doesn't mean that he gets to break things, he gets to hurt people, and he doesn't have consequences. That is not what I'm saying. I feel like it is our job as a parent to keep other people away from Noah during a meltdown. It's just going to make the meltdown worse anyway, so I feel like it's our job to make sure that he isn't near things that he can damage. Noah is our responsibility, and there are some things that I feel really do fall on us. That doesn't mean he's not responsible for his actions, but when he is in the middle of a meltdown, and I think this goes for probably every autistic child, person, adult, teen out there, when they are in the middle of a meltdown, things they do and say are completely beyond their control. Some people may disagree with me on that, but I will stick to that. With Noah, I can tell it's beyond his control. You can tell when Noah is coming back down to reality. Immediately, he is apologetic, he feels bad. If he makes a mess or if he breaks something during his meltdown, for example, for a while we had a problem of him throwing things. He'd make a huge mess. So now, after a meltdown, we go through, we talk about what happened, and we talk about different ways that he could have coped better. This isn't supposed to be a meltdown video, but I feel like it's going to be. Noah is such a sweet kid. Those are the only real instances that I feel like discipline would come into play. And so you have to learn, okay, what's a meltdown, what's autism, and what's just him being a typical kid kind of thing. But the really important thing about a meltdown is preventing a meltdown. If a meltdown is starting to happen, to de-escalate it. That doesn't mean it won't happen. It does happen, but if you keep it down to a minimum. So we talk about things. We talk about counting. You've heard us counting. That's really his coping mechanism to bring him back down so it doesn't become an explosive meltdown. It's just kind of like a mini meltdown, if that makes sense. So after a meltdown, we will clean up any mess that happened. He really doesn't make messes anymore because we keep him away from things. We've learned to. I feel like as a parent, as your kid gets older, you learn what works for your child and what works for you. In a meltdown, he has never, ever hurt anyone but myself. When he hurts me, it isn't because he's trying to hurt me. He is not in control of his actions. It's happening. I'm just in the way. I know that sounds horrible and I can't really explain it. My son's trust means more to me than you understanding what I'm saying. You can judge me. That's cool. Other things that Noah does not get disciplined for. He doesn't get disciplined for saying socially inappropriate things. We use that as a teaching moment. I feel like redirection in teaching is so much more important with autism. If he says something that is rude, but he doesn't realize it's rude, sometimes he will call people fat. Sometimes he'll call people fat that aren't overweight. They're like skinny, like stick and bones, and he'll still call them fat. But we just explain that that's not something you say to someone. It's rude. It could hurt someone's feelings. One time he was asking a grocery store clerk like how much she made, and she told him, and he's like, that's not very much money. Noah wasn't trying to be rude. He was kind of speaking the truth, but we use that moment to say that's not really something that you should ask someone. So those are more teaching moments. Now I'm going to briefly go over some things that we do discipline him for, and then I'll kind of talk about how we discipline kind of thing. We do discipline it if he's not in the middle of a meltdown. He goes up and he hits Lonnie Jr. or he throws something and he's not in the middle of a meltdown. Noah will be 11 this summer, so we know our kid pretty well on what is Noah being a preteen that's going through puberty and what is an autistic child having issues. We will never, ever discipline or punish him for autism. That's just not something we would ever do. But if he goes and hits Lonnie Jr., that's not okay. Like, he can't go around physically assaulting people and not having consequences. So it's very important that he has consequences. His consequences are simple. We keep it very simple. So with him, we don't do time. We do today. And we do not stack punishments. If we say, hey, Noah, you need to stop doing that or you're going to be grounded from Netflix today. If he keeps doing that, okay, Noah, you're grounded from Netflix today. If he still keeps doing it and he doesn't stop, or maybe he does something else, we don't extend that punishment. Stacking punishments is not really effective with any child. Studies have actually shown that it is used for the parent trying to get control. It's not effective with the child. So I don't recommend stacking punishments. For example, if Noah hit Lonnie, because that's really our biggest issue, is Noah does not know how to get Lonnie Jr. to interact with him in a normal way, I guess, or a typical way two brothers close in age would interact, because for those who don't know, Lonnie and Noah are only like 20 months apart, so they're super close in age. So he just starts hitting him like come play with me, instead of using his words. And while we understand that he may not fully know how to interact with his brother, I can't have one child beating up the other child and not do something about it. We don't love Noah more than Lonnie, so maybe if he keeps doing it and we tell him, Noah, let's calm down. We've tried redirecting him, we've tried counting to 10 and he's just not having it. Eventually we do get to a point where we have to hand out a consequence. He goes through days where he's into Netflix or he's into the computer or watching YouTube. He will spend the entire day wanting to do that thing. So we'll take away that one thing. We don't take away everything. I think we've only done that once or twice. His behavior had reached a really horrible point. It was when we were living with Lonnie's mom when we moved down here. Those were some rough days, but we do it because we understand that electronics is his way of coping and his way of dealing, and we don't want to completely take away his coping mechanism. The main issues we have with Noah is him not knowing how to interact with his siblings. He never hurts them or anything like that. Lonnie Jr. is a strong boy, okay? But it's not the point. The point is that he could hurt someone, and we want him to know as he gets older that that behavior is not okay. As we're getting him more stable, we're focusing on some not so important things. For example, his cussing. We want to work on him not saying cuss words. I didn't think it was normal, but let me just tell you, I'm a part of a really big autism group on Facebook, and someone asked that question. There were thousands of comments. Evidently, it's a very common thing. So if you have an autistic child that's verbal and they cuss a lot, it's normal apparently. So don't feel bad. Don't feel like you're being a bad parent. My other kids would never, ever, ever in a million years say a cuss word. Before Lonnie lost his job and we had to move up here, we were able to get Noah's cussing to a very, very minimum. Like, it hardly ever happened. When we started having problems with his behavior, of course the cussing came back. So now we're like trying to work on that. So we will hand out discipline for that. Like, Noah, if you keep saying this specific word or if you keep cussing, you're gonna need to go in your room for 30 minutes. We have a timer and we let him see the timer. Noah likes seeing the minutes go down and that kind of helps him. But sometimes just a break away from what he's doing, it helps. And also keeping a journal of maybe when their behavior is becoming escalated, maybe they're screaming more. Noah's a very high-strung, very intense kid. We kind of take notes and we kind of jot down what he's doing when he starts cussing more, what he's doing when he's starting to get worked up. Is it because he's watching a certain show on Netflix? Is it because he's playing a certain game? There are certain games on Roblox that he gets really frustrated with and it makes him more high-strung. So I feel like with autism, it's not as much discipline as it is learning what is setting them off. Because Noah, for the most part, Noah doesn't really lie. Noah doesn't intentionally do bad behavior. I'm also going to be doing a video. I think this video is going up before that video, but I may not. If not, I'll link it below. But I'm going to be doing a video on positive reinforcement and kind of a DIY positive reinforcement, like treasure box kind of thing. I feel like positive reinforcement works way better than negative reinforcement, which I feel is our natural go-to with any kind of kid. And just realize that not every child is the same. We have to discipline Noah completely different than Lonnie Jr. and Danielle. Noah gets away with things that Lonnie and Danielle wouldn't. My best advice that I'm going to leave this with is if you are using corporal punishment, I understand how frustrating it can be, especially if your child is younger. I just want you to kind of research and look into it and know that there are other ways to get your child to listen. If you look into it, if you've done your research and you still feel like that's the best method for your child and that's the best method for your child, but I beg you, if you have a child with autism or sensory disorder or anything like that, please, please, please try to find a different way. I don't think any parents out there would intentionally do this to their child. Okay, I'm sure there are parents that would, but I feel like if you're watching this video, it's because you care and you want to know more. So I feel like you wouldn't intentionally do that. So I just want to kind of leave that there to really look into finding different methods of punishment for your child or discipline for your child in that way. All right, guys. Well, with that said, please on your way out, hit that red subscribe button so you can become a part of our Landy crew. This month is, of course, all about autism. I'm posting a lot of sit downs, but starting in May, we will be doing a lot more vlogs. I just want to put as much informational videos out there since April is the month for autism awareness and autism acceptance. So let's accept and let's aware, and that made no sense, but I'm gonna go now.
Where you move make me blind. You will always be there. There's no doubt in my mind. You will always be there.